So you have two basic things in most of these deals, is building and then either selling or leasing. All right, so building is comprised of two items, budget and schedule. Seems like it should be easy. Nobody ever comes in on budget and nobody ever comes in on schedule. Now, you know how you start, you know how you come in on budget?
Assume that it's going to cost this much.
You got it. Start with the right budget and the right schedule and come in less, right? So that makes that pretty simple. Again, you're continually reviewing your budget schedule. Now remember, if you're behind schedule, inevitably you're going over budget because it means you don't have enough money in your carry items, right? So taxes, insurance, interest, you won't have enough money in those line items. So if you only budgeted a year and it takes two, where's that money coming from, right? So every time the schedule changes, the budget changes, right? And rarely are you ahead of schedule unless you're really smart. You started out with the right schedule. Broker supervision. So we have a lot of deals that are loans to either sell houses, loans to lease retail, loans to sell approved dirt. Again, same thing. Not only know the company, know the whole team, meet the team. Don't just let them send you a report every month. Get involved. Ask questions. Asset management should be changed to asking questions. You're never done asking questions. So on the brokerage side, when we're looking to sell something or lease something, you got to get in with the broker, really know who they are, know what they're doing, see what their plan is, monitor their marketing. You got the obvious, which is the website, social media. You know, I'm still a little old school. I like print. But you gotta know where's your, and that also has a budget and a schedule, right? So people don't think to ask brokers about budgets and schedules. So you've got to, again, say to them, when are you doing your blast? When's the website up? When's the event? Okay, you guys all attended your first event? That was an okay event. It should have been 10 times better. But to tell you the truth, that was that developer's first event. Right? So marketing has schedules. Even go back when we're talking about some of the deals that we're doing that are raw land getting approvals, right? That needs a schedule. So the architect's preparation of the plans and specs has a schedule. So you're constantly monitoring schedules and constantly monitoring budgets. Now in the case of operating businesses, you also want to be monitoring the P&L monthly, right? P&Ls move quick. If you don't get a handle on them, first day on the job, you'll never be able to catch up. A lot of people that run companies don't do monthly P&Ls. They don't look at them until the quarter or even mid-year or sometimes end of the year. You want to be constantly asking for updated projected and actuals. Okay, and obviously if you're behind schedule, it's going to the projected is going to be more, and if you're ahead of schedule, the projected should be less, right? But you are constantly updating budget and schedule. Now, the other role of asset management is dishing out money. In the ongoing funding requirements, you never want to let anybody get ahead of you. That's one of the keys, right? So if people are owed money, they tend to be more attentive. When you pay people in advance, they tend to be less attentive. It's kind of pretty simple. In asset management, your functions are overseeing the balance of the investment, knowing where you are, right? Knowing what's needed and when. So you want to constantly be 6 months ahead of yourself. So you should be able to report up to the CFO, here's how much money I need on this deal for the next 6 months, right? And that's going to change. So you got to keep updating it monthly.
What do you mean by, like, get ahead of you?
All right. you've heard nightmares from homeowners who give contractors deposits and remodel their kitchen, right? So the kitchen job's $100 grand, right?
Pretty much 80 before they even start.
And the guy says, I want a $50,000 deposit. And you hear about this more with consumers, but this is an easy way to explain it to you. If I say I'll pay you when you deliver the kitchen, then at least I know the kitchen's getting delivered. But if I give you 50 grand in advance, how do I know you're ever going to show up again, right? So when I say don't let them get ahead of you, try to always owe them more than they owe you. You know, we have the concept of retainage on our construction jobs. That helps a little. It's not great. There's no guarantees. Listen, if there's anything, everything will go wrong. And the asset manager's job is to try to have as little go wrong as possible. And the one way you do that is by controlling the purse strings. Right? So you always want, you know, borrower comes in and says, I did $1 million worth of work. So what is the process? Our engineer goes out and says, I concur. Right? So that if that happens, then you're kind of stuck paying that advance. But if your engineer says he only did 700 and the borrower says they did $1 million, you gotta always obviously side with your engineer. And you gotta do it in such a way where you keep the job moving, because they're gonna get paid in the next requisition anyway, right? So next month, eventually if the contract's $10 million, you can fight during the way, is it $1 million this month, is it $1.2 million, is it 800? Eventually everybody gets paid if they do their job. But that's why you just always want to be a little bit behind so that you have enough at the end, because the complexities of construction, of which we obviously do a lot, you've got every potential problem on earth. From you got subcontractors go bankrupt, which is a disaster. You got suppliers, particularly if you have a specialty supply, like you're doing something modular, you're doing something that's fabricated off-site, that's a long lead item, and that company goes bankrupt, you got a disaster on your hands that you really can't fix that quick. You know, the hard parts of the job are you can't monitor everything. Like, look, if I could, I'd want the P&L of every subcontractor on every job. The amount of time it would take, one, I'd never get it. Two, if you did get it, the amount of accountants you need to read it all is crazy. So, you know, you try the best you can. You know, there is delegated responsibility. GC's responsible for his subcontractors and suppliers. The architect's responsible for his engineers. Is there a perfect way? You know, people say, oh, get a bond. Well, a bond doesn't even guarantee it. An insurance company comes and saying, I guarantee. The insurance policies are this thick. They got 50 ways to get out of it. And it's not like they wake up in the morning in 24 seconds and say, I'm coming to finish your job. If the contractor goes bankrupt, they still got to go find a new contractor, right? So it is a very, very, very tough job. It is the toughest of all the jobs, but the most important of all the jobs. The key thing at the end of the day is getting paid. So you usually get paid through the sale of a company, the sale of a property, or another financial risk. At some point, the primary risks peel off. The easiest way to know if a guy's going to be or a girl's going to be successful in their exit strategy is to figure it out yourself, right? So, for instance, in our project in Jersey City, what did we do there? Well, when we got to 90% complete, and the amount of sales exceeded our $68 million loan, in one phone call we were able to convince a bank to pay us off. Now that was just a test to see would somebody pay us off, and it actually turned out they paid us off, right? So when you're doing a sale, so take any of our land deals. You want to know, we got some deals where we're taking the entitlement risk and putting up the money to get through the approvals. You want to call up 5 brokers and say, if I get 200,000 feet of industrial approved in Bergen County, what's that worth? How's the market for it? If you're building a hotel, you start seeing what the day rates are going to be, what your F&B's looking like. You start talking to banks and saying, what would you refi this at? And it's really simple. If a bank says, I'll refi it here, and your borrower's saying here, then you got a problem. If the delta's a little bit, then the market always has 10% up plus or minus. So you can verify your own exit strategy. You got a company that you got to get sold, have 5 people that want to buy it, right? It's kind of that simple. And again, I think the simplest way to summarize asset management is you're the CEO of that asset. And just act like it. That means you got marketing, you got insurance, you got regulatory compliance, you got P&L, you got balance sheet, you got budget, you got schedule, you got quality control. You can't have enough people on Google Alert. So you take your job, right? You got your borrower or partner, you got his staff. You can't put enough names in. You want to know, listen, if you got human issues always, remember. You got a borrower who, it turns out, got arrested, you need to know. You got a project manager on a job site who got arrested, you need to know. You got a subcontract who's being sued. Now here's the simplest, biggest. You got an electrical contractor, right, who's being sued on another job. You think he's doing fine on your job, and by the way, he may be doing fine on your job. He gets sued on another job, that's going to come affect you. Every business card you can get from the electrical project manager, all of these people, just get them in Google Alert because you need intel. The saddest thing about the business is you could have a contractor who's the greatest contractor of all time, doing a great job. And by the way, he's working on another job and he's doing a great job. Except that developer screws up in one way, shape, or form. The wrong product, not enough capital. And that contractor gets screwed for 2 payments. That's all it takes. 2 monthly payments. Bam, he was bankrupt over here. And that affects your job. Your job that was going great just got screwed. The amount of war stories about things that can go wrong are endless. Because you can't really rely on, you got to rely on everybody, but you can't rely on anybody. I mean, we once had a job, we were brought in on one of the greatest architects in the world. It was a wood frame building. I saw it in 2 seconds. Apparently, one of the top contractors in New York and the architect walked the building and never saw. Unfortunately, the building was only studded, and the steel stud track was laying on the top of the wood floor. Well, that doesn't give you a 2-hour rating. 100 apartments were already framed. I walked in, it took me 2 seconds. I don't know why nobody else caught that, but they had to rip out all the framing, caused a 3-month delay, cost $2 million between everything, between the work and the delay. And nobody can go, but we had a great architect, we had a great contractor, we had a competent developer. How did everybody walk by? Oh, by the way, and just to put the cherry on, and the building department stamped the plans that way. But the building department stamping plans does not mean anything. it gives you a right to proceed. It doesn't say that we guarantee that these plans that your architect submitted comply with every code, which is why they reserve the right during the CO process or during the inspection process to correct themselves. So, look, you really got to have eyes in the back of your head. The craziest part, by the way, is historically, originators who have the easiest job get paid the most. And I say the easiest job. They're taking people golfing, they're taking people drinking, which an asset manager should too. But they're out there cultivating clients and being social butterflies. And they usually get paid the most when the cycle's going like this. Now look, the good news is they're the first to get fired as soon as the market turns. And then asset management becomes the most valuable thing. Because once the market turns, it takes big banks quite a while for them to find, where is my asset management department? Nobody gives a shit. All they wanted to do is put money out, put money out, put money in, right? As soon as the shit hits the fan, so a good asset manager has great job security. And also an asset manager who negotiates the right contract can do well, because I'd rather get paid a percentage of what I recover than get paid a salary, right?
How do you ensure that you don't spread yourself too thin with multiple assets, since you do have to like allow a lot of time and researching and meeting with people?
Okay, you just hit like the $9 million question. All right. First, this is about, that question is not just about asset management, it's about running a company. I could throw 100 people at one asset. Will that guarantee me perfection? Probably not, by the way. If it went bad, would somebody say Billy didn't have enough people on the job? Not if I had 100, no. All right. And one asset manager should be able to handle, depending on the size, and again, this is assuming it's high-level asset management with developers and operators beneath. You should be able to handle 15 to 25 assets, right? There is a reality, like, look, if we decide to get 20 more people on staff in asset management, we'd have a bigger asset management staff, but I'd go broke, right? So you can't have too little, because that's irresponsible. Having too many people doesn't necessarily ensure perfection. I mean, look, at the end of the day, when you're in the lending business, if the due deal team did their job right, and one of the key things I told you is making sure they have a good team, presumably they're doing 75 to 85% of the work, and you're only trying to catch what they missed, right? And sometimes you get paid more for working with less competent groups. So, you know, there you may say, you know what, for this period of the job, or this period of the investment, and again, this goes with real estate or a business. You may say, for this period, I'm going to throw these special people on it, right? So that it's not a fixed expense forever. I mean, remember the job is to get to stabilization. So to answer your question, and it's a really tough question. You need to give it the amount of personnel that it needs. You need to constantly ask yourself, does it need more? And if it needs more, you got to give it more. But it's got to be the right give. Right? You don't want to throw something into the mix that causes trouble. Remember, it's you're really at the end of the day the general manager of a football team. You're not the coach. So when you've seen, whether it be basketball or football, bringing on LeBron James doesn't necessarily mean an NBA title. And you saw it with Shaq and what was the other guy's name?
Kobe.
And Kobe, right? Eventually they didn't like each other, and then that was the end of that, right? So that is the real nuance, is picking the right team, getting the work together right, and making sure you're calling the right plays. Did I answer that question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Why in a perfect market with no depreciation, where your project gets done on budget, on schedule, should the spread between actual and perceived value be 30%?
All right. Well, first off, let's talk about actual and perceived value. In happy times, people think things are worth a lot. Right? 'Cause in happy times, everybody's got money. Stock market's gone up, right? Housing values have gone up. Everybody forgot about 2008 already. So when people feel good, they have an optimistic view, right? You know, when there's a market crash, right? People feel bad, and all of a sudden everything's worth shit. And the truth of the matter is, nothing was ever that good and worth that much. So if you go back to the crash, in 2006, things were selling like crazy. And if you look at the charts that you gave me, median home prices, they went like this, right? They had that, the last turn of 2004, 5, and 6, this was just a liquidity. Liquidity pushed the median prices of the home in America. Liquidity, cheap liquidity, subprime liquidity, no credit liquidity, right? Drove everything up. Well, it was never worth that. Then in 8, just went through the floor. Well, it was never worth that either. So the first thing is to understand that value and appraisals are bullshit.
You're fine. Don't even get out.
It's all a perception thing. The only way you can ever figure out value is you take the last 20 years, you draw a line straight back, right? Now you got 20 years of real housing data, and that average is the average. And look, you know, and everything should move at 3%. You know, why real estate has, unlike other commodities, real estate has this thing of 7 years it goes like this, 3 years it goes like that. It should be like that. Now, in the article that you were addressing, the perceived and intrinsic value, the point is that was addressing just construction jobs. So banks think, right, that if there's 70% loan to value on a construction job, right, and this goes right to asset management's core. The idea is, I'm at 70 LTV, because I'm building, right? And when I'm done, right, if I put $10 million out, the product's worth 15, right? The problem is, in the middle, it's worthless. On banks' balance sheets, so if they were making a $10 million loan to build a $10 million building, when they lend $5 million of it, which means it's halfway done, on their balance sheet, they say they have a value of $5 million. But the truth of the matter is, it's worthless. Because you can't sell a half-built building, right? So in the article, The Coming of the Half-Builts, the first thing it says is, you gotta get finished, because there is no value of a half-built job. Even a building that's 90% done does not have 90% of the loan's value. Because until you got a C of O, nobody knows what the unknowns are. You're never done. You got to know the electrician, the plumber, every single major trade. You got to know who their project manager is. You want to research the company. What's it say about them on social media, things of that nature. But most importantly, it's people. Remember, machines don't build buildings, people build them, right? So you want to get to know just about everybody, and remember, the lowest person on the totem pole usually knows the most about what's going wrong, right? The most senior people try to spin things on you. So what you're trying to always do is stay ahead of the next problem. So during the first period, you want to clarify where your risks are. Clarify who's your strong people. You're inevitably going to have strong people and weak people. So great companies have more strong than weak. But there's no such thing as 100% strong. So you got to identify who are your weak links and then figure out how you're going to box and manage them. Right? The simplest thing to do is if you got somebody that's weak, you get somebody next to them that's strong. And if they're too weak, then they got to be replaced. And you got to figure that out. If you're the owner, you can do that by yourself. If you're a partner, you got to convince your partner. If you're a lender, you can't just go fire somebody's project manager. You got to figure out how to convince your borrower that that person is the wrong person for the job, or needs to be supplemented, right? So you got all your people on the site. You got all the people in the office. The next group are all the people that design the building, right? So you got to get to know who is your architect, who's your structural, mechanical, electrical engineer. Now, a lot of people don't do this, and this is why when things get rough and banks have to take back properties, why they have so much trouble and they need to hire companies like us, because they never even think to go meet the architect, or the electrical engineer, or the mechanical engineer. And as we see today, we've got projects that can't get COs fast enough because the developer doesn't even work well with their own engineers. I mean, a lot of developers don't even go to meet the structural, mechanical, and electrical. They just rely on the architect, right? So you're never done saying, I want to go meet, I want to go meet, I want to go meet, I want to go meet. Now the second part is really where the magic is. If you can get relationships where you will get information. Remember, you're in a continuing quest for information. That is asset management. You're constantly reevaluating, constantly seeking information, constantly identifying risk. And you're never done until you're paid off. And never over. On the government side, you want to go meet everybody on the government side. As high up in the government as you can get. If you're in a big city, that might only be deputy mayor. Little city, you can usually get to the mayors. You want to know your building inspectors. You want to know your council people. You want to know your local nonprofits. You want to know who are the power players, your chambers of commerce. Everything you can possibly know.